Culture Club.
Power.
All
Live
right,
from
here we are again, Jeff.
live from North Carolina, live from
That's
Miami.
right. Yeah.
We're on the road this week, it seems like.
Well, I am anyway. I mean, we're I don't know where you are. The yeah, today is the first day of my son's college career, so we're moving him in right after this recording. So
Congratulations, Ben.
that'll be fun. Huh, thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Campbell is more likely.
It is,
Um,
and I have to give shouts out to Campbell. He's one of the greatest guys with greatest patience. Spends quite some time with my son in developing all of his video ideas. So I just want to say thank you to Campbell for all that.
yeah, the last time they got together, they made a film together, which was
I
kind of
did,
amazing.
which I have to.
Um,
We have to get online so everyone to see.
okay, good. Put that in the show notes. So what's been going on, Jeff? So when last we spoke, you were en route to Fanaticsfest.
Right. Fanaticsfest. I'm glad I went. It's as we expected. There was a lot of major league teams that were activating there, and the idea is that they're trying to make a fantastical space for any fan of sport to come together and have camaraderie. And there's, certainly a lot of athletes and autographs. What I also found quite interesting was that a big part of the show was also the collectibles market, of course, which is a space that Fanatics holds. They own Tops, as we know, and have a lot of good contracts around cards these days. And the memorabilia side of the show was really like a card show. It was a straight card show. Certainly not the same as what a lot of people call the National, which is the big national show that happens every year. I think
Right.
it was in Chicago this year. And that's really where you draw
When
in
you
like
say
super fans.
show, you mean this is like the card, literally baseball card, basketball card, whatever card collectible show?
That's right. That's the
Yeah.
big.
Okay.
It's called the National because it's like the big annual event, and it happened in Atlantic City 2 years ago. It was in Chicago this year. I'm pretty sure they bring over 80,000 people through the space who are collectors. Now, what was cool about Fanatics was that they had a very big card section. Many of those dealers had been at the National, but it was not the same. It was an opportunity, I think, for sports fans who may not have touched the memorabilia side to do it. You saw a lot of dads walking around with their sons and daughters looking for specific players, and I thought that was cool. It was also great to run into, everybody was there, which was super cool. But we'll see what they do next year. As I said, and again, in no way am I trying to take away the accolades that they deserve, but what happens next year? When you've got guys like Travis
Yeah.
Scott
Well,
and Jay-Z, like, what do you
that
do?
that that was the thing I talked to somebody on Wednesday who was there and who I think went in with the same approach that I would have taken, which is like, this is a cultural entertainment moment, a la a Complex Con or a Hype Fest, which just happened in China or whatever the thing is.
But the,
And he was
but
just
there
like,
was
no,
less
no,
to buy, I
it was
think.
much more about he was right. Well, not just less to buy, but like he's like, no, it was it. I got stuck in the baseball card aisle for some period of time. I don't care about baseball cards. I couldn't get out, kind of thing. So
There was a lot of people for sure.
it's clearly much more the literal collector market than the, let's call it, cultural consumer. And I wonder to what extent they continue to push more into the cultural side of things, knowing Michael Rubin's sort of adjacencies and aspirations there.
I want to know what that
But
looks
anyway.
like. I want to know what that looks like because the
Mm-hmm.
the one takeaway from the Fanatic show, and the plan is to make this regional. They're going to make this regional. I'm pretty sure they're going to do this in LA next.
Interesting. Okay.
Is how do you begin to have the team show up? I thought that was really interesting. So you had leagues who were of course more than happy to share their banners and their scarves of all the teams in the league, but there were very few teams themselves that were showing up. So it'll be interesting to see how the teams get involved, what the opportunity is at that level for them.
Got it. So this is I mean, probably bad example, but like Paris Saint-Germain has a pretty developed merch program through
Totally.
Nike or Jordan. You're saying teams like that showing up and saying like, here are our convention exclusives, here's our general release array, all that sort of thing.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I think you nailed it. It would have been amazing. By the way, again, not taking away from the show because it was show one. And certainly we've heard, I heard rumors on the show floor that a lot of the major athletic brands were courted for this, including Nike. And I think just like ComplexCon, they're just, again, I hate to keep using ComplexCon as the example because they are the last, I would say, cultural entertainment event, at least in my space. I think they're certainly going to start seeing those bigger players next year,
that level of participation,
which will be quite interesting.
Looks like we're having some trouble with the internet connection. I don't know if Jeff is seeing that.
There you
Might be unstable on my side.
No, you're back now.
All right, good. Well, in any case, Jeff, what aside from Fanaticsfest, what else has been going on? I discovered something this morning which I thought was kind of interesting, apropos of our favorite culture brands extended product universe.
Well, let's start there then, because that's where I was going to go. Please.
All right. So as last Thursday was, as I saw Throwing Fits note, Supreme Day, right? The day on which Supreme acknowledges or releases all of their products for the season. And the thing that always fascinates me the most is the accessories and the branded like merch stuff that they do outside of core wearables and luggage and that kind of thing. Because they are famous for always doing it better than everybody else and also getting ahead of things. And of course, the weight bench was the thing that got the most attention because it's just so turned up and ridiculous. But the thing that I thought was actually really interesting and the one mind blower for me was the Selmer alto saxophone Supreme edition. And I was doing a little digging on that today, and I found Selmer, which I didn't know, but is a French company, maker of saxophones and other fine brass and woodwind instruments. They have a saxophone called the Supreme.
They do
already, which is the top of the line expression of their alto sax. The Supreme co-branded one is not the same saxophone. You can buy the Selmer Supreme now for $9,500. So we presume that the Supreme co-branded sax version will be available later this fall for in the $10,000 range, something like that. But the thing that I found interesting about that was that if the connection, the ostensible connection between Supreme the brand and the saxophone is John Coltrane, his song "I Love Supreme," which was one of the namesakes of the brand, was played on a tenor, and it is a Selmer horn, but it's a Mark VI tenor saxophone. So I thought it was interesting that they did an alto, and I don't know why, because Coltrane played lots of different horns, but not like he's famously a tenor player.
That's right. I didn't realize that the record itself was done on a tenor sax, but I guess I should have. Maybe that's something they missed, and I hope it's not. What it speaks to in my mind is that this may be completely disassociated from where the name came from and from Coltrane a little bit.
But then why do the saxophone? That's the thing that would be the mystery to me if there's no connection there.
If you want me to be controversial, I would say it's a little bit of a swan song.
Swan song? How do you mean?
Meaning that they're at a place now. Let me make sure I got that definition correct. Ben, sometimes I get my words.
Swan song means the end of something.
That's right. So I'm wondering if it's sort of, again, like if you're reading into this the way you would read into, say, ABC's Lost, yeah, it could be the swan song. It could be the sign of sort of the last blow through the horn of, I don't know, an era. Because we do keep hearing that, right? We keep hearing, and I guess you keep feeling it as well, that they've turned a point, right? It's
Supreme's done. man. To me, it's like the supreme consumer is like straight edge kids. There are always going to be 14-year-olds.
That's
And,
great.
you know,
By the way, more than ever, by the way, more than
culture.
ever straight edge kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole different thing tied into wellness and our Gen Z trends and so on and so forth. But either way, like to me, that brand always has a market, always has a viability, always has a way forward. It's just more a matter of like who's hating and why at any given time. And
Yeah.
then for me, it's like I get excited every year when they come out with that accessories list because there is always something like the saxophone that I'm just like, oh my God, who thought of that? Why? That's so smart because it's so out of left field. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still bullish.
They have, and I appreciate that. I think you make it. It's pretty obvious they're not going anywhere, and certainly I'm not suggesting that.
And especially not with new ownership, right? It was like the Luxottica's got to figure out
and
what to do with that.
Not financial advice by any measure, but
I don't think it's even advice.
It's not. I mean, here's the thing: there's very few at the most simple level. Supreme has less and less things they can touch, meaning that, you know, if you were to understand their strategy over the years, they want to be first in having a specific collaboration. And in fact, sometimes they'll avoid a product if it's already been collaborated with. We know that for sure.
Yeah, sure.
And you're right. I think the accessories list is absolutely the best. I'm still crazy about seeing it as well and what you pull. I mean, we've bought some of the craziest accessories, you know, when we had for our New York office, which is still there. And the biggest one we did was the pinball machine. And the pinball machine, yeah, and wow. It was, you know, the pinball machine was probably $5,000 over what a normal pinball machine is, but you're buying it for a reason. And I have to tell you, it's a fantastic piece that everyone wants to use. And for the longest time, people would literally come to the office to do photo shoots around that pinball machine. So
yeah, of course.
You know, and by the way, you know, is a pinball machine the same as a sax? I think a little bit. They're the same price. You know, it's certainly that. And let's talk about it. You know, we're in the $10,000, essentially the $10,000 range for a Selmer sax or pinball machine. So those things are super cool. And, you know, to the point of them being abstract or unattainable by some, that's clearly the point, right? It's clearly the point that it's for the few.
Well, I just think, I mean, to me, it's I guess the bit of dissonance here is this: it feels like to me, all of those products theoretically get generated because they touch the Supreme consumer's lifestyle in some kind of meaningful way, but they are also surprising. And so I would imagine there are probably some saxophone players among the Supreme consumers, probably not very many, but probably some. And saxophone as an instrument has been trending back in music over the last decade after having been essentially invisible for 15 or 20 years. But the opportunity to connect it specifically to Coltrane and to Love Supreme seems so obvious to me that I found it weird that it was the alto rather than the.
That's the thing. It's not. Who knows? I don't know I know the Miles Davis family has had issues with some Supreme stuff, but the Coltrane, I think, Ben, you would know better than me. Is it a handshake between the Coltrane Foundation and Supreme?
No, there's no relationship. There's no relationship. The licensed Coltrane products in the past have been done through Bravado, which is the licensing arm of Universal Music, which controls Impulse Records, which is the label on which Coltrane and Alice both recorded. And then with Selmer, that's as a relationship, I presume, just with Selmer, right? The Coltrane has, as far as I understand, has nothing to do with it. But nonetheless, like you want to honor the connection, and you want to honor the inspiration accurately. Anyway, we've talked enough about that. Let's move on to another subject, which is a similar vein, and which you put in the list, which is the Yves Klein Yves Klein archive collaboration with the North Face.
That's right.
Which I thought was really amazing. So for those that don't know, Yves Klein was a French modern artist who's best known for developing a very signature very deep, rich shade of blue, which he then trademarked as International Klein Blue, IKB. And he was the first artist to trademark a color.
Right.
And then he then used that color not only in works of lots of different art mediums, but also in producing products, with the idea that the color is the artistic expression.
That's right.
When I discovered it when I was in college, it was just like I thought it was an incredibly powerful idea. And North Face has now come out with a little capsule of stuff in IKB.
I like it a lot. I think it's a different kind of collaboration, really, or co-brand. This is not necessary, as you said. It's around a color very specifically, rather than it is the signature of another designer. So, it's what I think is super cool is that it's very clear what it is in this product. Or, excuse me, what is this collection and what's not. I also think it's a great opportunity to really, not only talk about the color, but talk about Yves Klein, talk about the work, the connections, and, from a guy that really wants people to be more culturally literate, I think it's an important one, and hopefully people pay attention to it.
Yeah, no, I love product as a means to discover an artist's oeuvre and universe, and I love the idea of the artist, the artist's work being brought to life evocatively through product. So I really dug this one. Not to mention the fact that, as everybody knows, I'm a real blue guy. So,
dude, the color's
IKB,
sick.
IKB,
I'm picking this stuff up
IKB,
just to wear
big
it.
color for me.
Yeah, it's totally
of
wearable
course.
in my sense.
Ironically, can wait? Hold on, before we go any further. Ironically, as I'm scrolling through this article on Footwear News, I just got served a Kraft singles ad where the background of the ad is like IKB. Now, clearly not an official license, but just sort of an amazing coincidence of and a showcase of the power of that color.
That's serious. I've got a question.
It sells shoes. It sells shorts. It sells cheese, Jeff.
Why not? North Face, what is your take on them these days? They're certainly here. Are they a classic brand at this point?
Definitely. And classic brand, but also one that is obviously undergoing some pretty interesting ups and downs, meaning like parent company VF has publicly struggled. Vans has been way down over the last few years. They obviously just divested Supreme. And North Face has been kind of the bright spot for them over the last couple of years. North Face also has been, and we know some of the marketers involved, but they've been pushing, I think, more into a kind of a omnicultural space. And this weekend, actually going on right now, is the Brooklyn Climb Festival that they're doing at Vital Gym in Williamsburg and a few other places, I believe. But I'm regrettably not there because it's like 3 blocks from my house. But otherwise, I would love to go check that out and see what that activation looks like and how they're bringing it to life. Yeah, it's like the least rugged corner in the world, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But it's an interesting one. It also it follows like those climbing gyms as cultural centers. Vital, that climbing gym where it's at, is might as well be a nightclub at this point. Really, sincerely, it's kind of amazing.
You turned me on to Casey Lewis's latest podcast around where the dating apps are going, where are people meeting, and more than that, it was a great conversation she had. She also had 2 others, including a community manager from Eventbrite, that made it pretty clear that Eventbrite is a place where singles are turning. Certainly look for events. The thing that I got from Casey's show was that rock walls, pickleball, for as much as they didn't want to admit it, this is where people are meeting one another. And quite frankly, it's fairly true.
Famously run clubs, right? Yeah, run clubs.
They kind of all started together.
That's been that's all been a big story. So yeah, I don't know. I find it fascinating, and it also is clearly part of a strategy across the business, because Arc'teryx also did a similar sort of climbing gym activation week in Red Hook this summer. I don't know the dates of that one, so I'm not sure exactly when it happened. But yeah, so I don't know. To me, North Face is absolutely a classic brand. It's absolutely a go-to wear anywhere sort of thing. It's still the puffer that my daughter insists upon, it's still, although as Casey said, not the number one backpack request this year, but like kids going back to school, huge backpack business. So yeah, absolutely.
Super cool. I loved the North Face pack when I was in high school. I remember that thing pretty well. And speaking of, we've talked about Yves Klein and North Face, Supreme and Selmner. How about Lego and Nike? This one is interesting. This one's interesting.
The funny, for all of the stories about Nike over the last couple of weeks, starting with Massimo Gianco's post on LinkedIn about the, as he called it, epic value destruction that's been overseen by John Don, the CEO, John Donahue, and the new brand president, Heidi Lewis, who
what's
has been there for
Massimo's
many years.
background for those that may not be aware?
He was Massimo, and I don't know him personally, but he was a marketing director in EMEA, operating out of Silversun, which is their European headquarters just on the outskirts of Amsterdam. And he left there in 2022, went and worked for a while on the expansion of the Autry sneaker business, which is a fascinating story and one that we should talk about at some point. And then now I guess is an independent consultant. But he wrote this post on LinkedIn, which went into great detail about how John Don's switch away from a category offense to a men, women's, kids offense and moving out of a wholesale-based business into DTC ended up creating a huge problem for Nike in terms of brand heat at a street level because they weren't present, and at a cultural level because they weren't as specific about each of the sports where specificity really matters. Like to a runner, the shoes that you wear really matter. To somebody padding around the streets, it doesn't matter as much. And I think the presumption was, well, we're really about padding around the streets now. And that has been a disastrous strategy. The reason all of that is important is that they moved away from trying to convince those apex athlete teens that they have targeted basically since the brand started, that Nike was the the Ne Plus Ultra, the thing you wanted. And so this Lego thing is sort of like, let's age down even and get the kids even younger than the teens that we were going for before.
That's how I read it. So, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
It's looking 100%. It's to touch again that younger consumer that unfortunately they have lost. And who has won that younger consumer? Right? We keep saying Crocs, but who else?
I mean, yeah, that's
nothing wrong with Crocs.
I don't have a better answer than Crocs.
For one of my courses, I'm starting to build a curriculum around, the kids always, in class, we constantly remind people around trickle down theory and trickle up theory and product. And for the, certainly Crocs, I think, was a trickle up, meaning that it went from a casual wear brand to something that's certainly been embraced by luxury and fashion. It has become a luxury staple now. It's a great case study in how a business that really thrived for decades on a very mass market silhouette has been able to adopt pretty well.
I mean,
especially the women's space.
Yeah, no, they continue to kill it. Well, although we should do a deep dive on Crocs and get into Soleil and get into all the collaborations and get into just what that has meant for the wider business there generally. But for now, I got to go take a kid to college, so we're gonna have to pull up on the half hour at this point.
Listen, we're short on the half an hour, but we want to thank everyone for listening in. It's Friday. We're putting these things up at the end of the week. We'd love for you to continue to take a listen. Follow us on Spotify or wherever you're hearing the show. And more importantly, if you like it, share it with your friends.
As well as at the Culture Club YouTube and at my own Deets Nuts YouTube channel where we're broadcasting live on Fridays.
We need to turn it up a little bit on the Culture Club, which would be great. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.
Jeff, love it. Have a great weekend, guys. See y'all soon.